Pilotcast. I'm Tiffany Wolff, and today we're broadcasting live from EAA AirVenture to bring you episode 3 of a very special 3-part podcast. Pilotcast is very passionate about anything and everything airplane. So when we heard Lightspeed Aviation had created a foundation that would offer over $50,000 in grants to some of our favorite charitable organizations, we had to get involved and do what we do best, podcasts. We have Allan Schrader, president of Lightspeed Aviation and visionary of Lightspeed Aviation Foundation, to tell us just a little bit more.
Tiffany, thanks. It's a thrill to be here and a thrill to team up with the Pilotcast crew in telling the story about the Lightspeed Foundation. Really, at its core, it's an outgrowth of our desire to give back out of the bounty that we have and to give into the organizations and the aviation community that has been so important to our growth.
Yeah.
And so we came up with the idea of trying to be able to feature so many of the great nonprofit organizations within aviation that are doing good and try to have some vehicle to get them better connected with the pilot community. And so the idea of the foundation was born. And it's really pretty straightforward and unique. We want the pilots to get involved, to learn more about these organizations, and then to vote for the organizations they feel most connect with their passions and the things that interest them in aviation. And the foundation is made up of 20 nominees, and we've got several of them here today to talk about one of the key segments. There's 3 of them the foundation supports: compassion, advocacy, and awareness, and growth. And all 3 of those, I think, are important to the long-term future of the aviation community. And the ways pilots get involved are 2. 1, learn about these organizations. You can go to our website, lightspeedaviationfoundation.org, or the Lightspeed Aviation website itself. Go to the foundation page, click on the organizations. There's direct links to their websites, and they can learn more about the organizations. And then after that, we want you to vote. We want you to vote for the one that you feel is best connecting with your passions. The other way they can vote is through purchasing a Lightspeed headset. If you bought a Zulu or a Sierra headset, when you go to register the product, there's an opportunity for you to pick one of those organizations and donate directly to them through your purchase, $50 or $25. So we want to get the organization's greater visibility and lift it up in the eyes of pilots. Right. We want the pilots to get involved in that. And so that's what the foundation is about, giving back and getting pilots connected with it.
Great. So you can go to lightspeedaviationfoundation.org or the regular Lightspeed website, which is lightspeedaviation.com.
Yep.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for doing this, Allan, and we're really excited to get the nominees up here.
And I'm looking forward to today's session on growth.
Great. Thanks, Allan.
Take care.
During our past 2 episodes, we have heard from 2 of the 3 groups who have been nominated to win one of the 5 $10,000 grants. We have interviewed 6 out of 20 nominees whose missions encompass one of the Lightspeed Aviation Foundation's vision of awareness, compassion, and growth. Today, we've invited our last but certainly not least group to join us for our Q&A discussion so that you, aviation community, will be able to decide the 5 organizations that you think deserve to win a $10,000 grant. Voting can be done at any time online at lightspeedaviation.com or lightspeedaviationfoundation.org. During episode 1, we heard from nominees representing the awareness vision of Lightspeed Aviation Foundation. They are the people who assure that the future of aviation is preserved and extended. Episode 2, we were captivated by the compassion group whose philanthropic selflessness extends not just around the corner, but also around the world. And our final episode of the 3-part podcast has the biggest attendance, which makes perfect sense. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to our final show in this 3-part series. It's growth. Lightspeed Aviation Foundation defines their vision of growth as this: to assure a vibrant and growing pilot community. Our goal is to introduce, engage, and mature the next generation of aviation enthusiasts. Before we introduce our nominees, I would like to give the floor to 2 very special guests who will help define how this area of growth makes our aviation community so special. I would like to introduce a couple that has revolutionized flight training, the only husband and wife to both hold every category and class of FAA pilot and instructor certificates. My hometown heroes from San Diego, also recognized worldwide, John and Martha King.
Hello, Tiffany. Thank you very much for a wonderful introduction.
You know, talking about growth, this is something very dear to our hearts. John and I have had the privilege of flying our own airplane or a general aviation airplane in every continent except Antarctica.
Wow.
And John's got that on the list, maybe one of these days.
I don't know, figure out how we can go to Antarctica, but we'll figure it out someday.
And one of the things that we have become very aware of is how much more vibrant and active the general aviation community is in the United States compared to pretty much any country, any other country around the world. And as we've looked at that and thought about it, a big reason for that, we feel, is they lack the organizations, the membership organizations like EAA and AOPA, but also all of the philanthropic organizations that are so active, particularly ones that are trying to get more people involved, like Build a Plane and Brigade Air. These are groups that are incredibly important to the future of aviation. If you take a look at the statistics on how many people are getting their private pilot certification, back in 1990, there were nearly 42,000 private pilot certificates issued. But last year, in 2009, that number was down to a little bit less than 20,000.
Wow.
That is frankly, a terrifying drop.
Right.
We would like to see it growing, and instead we're seeing it cut in more than half. That's not sustainable. We have to reverse that. If we don't reverse that in general aviation, we're going to lose in a lot of ways. We're going to lose FBOs, we're going to lose flight schools, we're going to lose the ability to support good training programs, and we are going to lose political influence in the U.S. because there won't be enough people involved in general aviation, at some level at least, that they care about what happens to us. So this is a situation we really must reverse. It's critical.
Tiffany, this effort of the Lightspeed Foundation, Lightspeed Aviation Foundation, to stimulate growth is not only important for general aviation, as Martha said, but it's actually important for society as well, because general aviation is where our pilots come from, it's where our engineers come from. We lead the world in aviation, we certainly lead the world in general aviation, and that's because we have this thriving community. So it's important not only to us in general aviation, or those in aviation in particular, but it's important to society. We all need this. And I'll go a step further in it. When someone learns to fly, it changes who they are and how they feel about themselves forever. They're not the same person anymore. You know, the general public has no understanding of the commitment involved in learning to fly. It's a huge commitment. During the time you learn to fly, everyone says to themselves, you know, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this. And it takes this commitment over a long period of time. And you know, your right leg shakes from holding the rudder. You sweat all the way down to your belt and beyond. And it's a huge commitment. You have to take a knowledge test and study for it. And then after months and months and months of study, you get ready, and then you have to go in the air and be evaluated. And you got to fly with someone, and they got to watch you fly. Well, this changes who you are because you've made this commitment, and it changes the person. And so what we have is when someone learns to fly, it not only changes their viewpoint of the world, but it also changes who they are as a person, because it uses so many aptitudes. It uses physical skill, stress management, emotional management, three-dimensional problem solving, and it sets you up for being evaluated. And when you've gone through that, you're a different person when you're done. So I think society gains not only by having new pilots, engineers, but it changes because we change the quality of who people are. And we have to figure out how we're going to get more people engaged, because the experience that most people have in aviation is that they get on an airliner. And many of the aspects of that, going through the terminal, being strapped in your seat with a few hundred of your closest friends, many of the aspects of that aren't pleasant to people. And so aviation, in general aviation, is all about the experience, and all about the experience and how you feel about yourself and the way you live life. So I think that this effort to focus on growth, make us understand it, not only helps our industry, but it helps society as a whole. We all need it. It's very important to all of us. And I commend the Lightspeed Aviation Foundation for their wonderful leadership in this area.
Oh. Well, we are very pleased to have you here, and it is an honor to hear from you. And I think you just hit that nail on the head of how important this actually is. And without any further ado, I'd actually like to go ahead and bring up our nominees and hear what they have to say. So thank you so much for being here. Pleasure to see you.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Okay, thank you. Ready? So I'm sitting here now with two of our nominees, and I'd like to go ahead and introduce them. We have Bruce Wolff, with an amazing last name, let's just face that, from Brigade Air. And Bruce is going to go ahead and tell us just a little bit about what Brigade Air does.
Brigade Air introduces youth to missionary aviation, and we do it through camping and a mentoring curriculum, and we do it nationwide and also through Canada.
Excellent. And it's all volunteer?
Yes, we do it with volunteer pilots that are screened through our website that I do training with, and also volunteer aircraft owners that can register their aircraft on our website as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, great. And then our next guest, we have Lynn from Build a Plane. And Lynn, why don't you go ahead and tell us just a little bit about what Build a Plane does?
Okay, Tiffany. Build a Plane is a nonprofit organization that solicits aircraft donations. We ask people to donate airplanes to us, and they get a tax credit for that. And then we take those airplanes and place them in high schools around the United States so the kids get a chance to build a real airplane. And while they do it and have all that fun, they're also learning science and math and technology and engineering. So that's what we do.
That's excellent. You know, while walking around the grounds, I did see that you had a display that said, "Kids built this airplane." That was really neat.
It is wonderfully exciting.
I made sure to take a picture to send to my sister and say, get the boys signed up.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Beyond these two organizations, there are 4 other nominees in the Foundation's lineup this year whose principal area of focus is growth. On behalf of the Pilotcast and Lightspeed Aviation Foundation, we'd like to take a moment to thank all of our nominees for the contribution that they make every day to better aviation. It's inspiring and remarkable what each have accomplished, and a blessing to so many people worldwide. So without any further ado, let's begin our Q&A portion of this episode. All right, let's go ahead and start with question number 1. The vision of the episode is growth. And when describing growth, the Lightspeed Aviation Foundation defines their vision of growth as this: to assure a vibrant and growing pilot community, our goal is to introduce, engage, and mature the next generation of aviation enthusiasts. So would you please describe how your organization's mission fits into this vision?
Well, we'll extend aviation into the future through the kids that we're recruiting to serve as altruistic and humanitarian and missionary aviators in the future. We've been doing this for 10 years now. We've had roughly 2,200 teens aged 14 to 18 at our 104 individual week-long aviation camps. We're in 23 states. We're in Canada. We've been in Romania, Bolivia, and in Eleuthera, Bahamas in the past 10 years. And so again, the focus on the future, it's in those kids, and that's our teenagers. That comprises our only audience with Brigade Air.
Excellent. So you're kind of teaching these kids, preparation for Oshkosh. They're like mini Oshkoshes.
Well, I wouldn't quite call it that, but it's pretty intense.
Right.
They do fly every day, weather permitting, hands-on the controls, ground school activities, a lot of video material from real stories from missionaries on the mission field in foreign places. So it's kind of a taste and gives them a chance to experience what they'd be getting into in the future. And it's very high challenge, high excitement, high adventure at these camps. So it's pretty serious, it's pretty intense, but it's a blast.
I bet. I bet it's amazing to be able to give them kind of that light at the end of the tunnel and going through those high school and middle school stages in life.
Yeah, it's difficult. A lot of fun. I mean, every time in fact, one of my problems lately is trying to keep the dads from coming to camp with them. They're always asking, boy, can I come with them? You know, this is something I wish I could have done when I was their age.
My son gets very nervous camping, and I have to be here with him. That's great. Well, thank you. So we're going to go over to Lynn. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Yes, well, Build a Plane, as I mentioned earlier, donates real airplanes to high schools. To date, we have somewhere north of 150 schools in the United States that have taken an aircraft donation for us. And we also get, we get everything from, we're the high school down the street, to, we got an email about 3 years ago from an Eskimo village. An Eskimo village in southwest Alaska that had a population of about 1,000 people.
Wow.
And they very much wanted their kids to build an airplane. As you might imagine, aviation's a big deal up in Alaska to these kids. Well, it was somewhat of a task for us to find out how we were going to get an aircraft to a village that's 500 miles from the nearest road.
Wow.
But we found a company called Indus Aviation that was willing to donate the components to build an aircraft. The only problem was that those components are all manufactured in Bangalore, India.
Oh, wow.
But we were able to get Federal Express to pick it up from Bangalore and fly it to Anchorage.
That's excellent.
Another local freight hauler picked it from there and flew it to Bethel, Alaska, and a third freight hauler up in Alaska picked it up and took it into the village.
Oh my goodness.
That was 3 years ago. The first group of kids that got to work on that have left the village, went to the lower 48 and got their A&Ps and have returned to the village.
Wow.
We have several kids who soloed. In about probably less than a week, the aircraft that these kids started will be complete and will be flying.
Wow.
And we have the original 11 kids that started working in this Eskimo village here today.
Really?
At Oshkosh.
No kidding.
Right.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is amazing if you think about this is a village that has no indoor plumbing. And yet, they have completed a flying airplane that all the kids in the village will use to learn to fly.
That's excellent.
Yeah,
that
very
is
exciting.
An amazing contribution.
Yes, it is.
Wow. Well, that actually kind of answers my second question, which we're going to go ahead and let you start with. So now you have to tell us the second story. Because my second question is, since the beginning of your foundation, what is the most amazing story that you can tell us? What is the story that you take the most pride in and that Build a Plane can stand strong on and loves to tell everywhere they go?
I understand. Well, several years ago, we got an email from a young man in Nigeria, and his village had just gotten television. And he, for the first time, got to watch television, and he found himself really attracted to aviation programs. Eventually, he was directed to us, and he wanted to know if we could fund an aircraft construction project for him. And we said, no, that's not what we do. If we find any donated aircraft in Nigeria, we'll let you know. But he had drawn and sketched out an airplane that he wanted to build. And we looked at the airplane, and it was really very intelligently designed. And he had come up with a budget of 773,821 Zimbutus, or whatever their currency was. I put that in a currency translator, and it turned out to be $550.
Wow.
And Cirrus was able to come up and actually give him the seed money for his school to begin this airplane. And so we had a group of kids in Nigeria who built a complete airplane from scratch. They called us back midway through the project and they said, gee, we've run out of money. We were a couple of $100 off on our budget. And we explained to them that even Boeing runs a little over budget sometimes when they're making airplanes.
A little bit.
And we got them the rest of the funds.
Excellent.
And these kids now have gone into aviation careers in Nigeria just from the simple magic that occurs when kids get put together with a real airplane.
That is amazing, and it is so neat to see how Build a Plane is able to then again reach out into the aviation community and pull funds from Cirrus and FedEx.
Yeah, I'm sure Professor Wolff here would agree. But once you have a project in place, it's amazing how people just fall out of the woodwork because they want to contribute in making a difference.
Yeah.
And so just getting something up and running is often all it takes for miracles to be created.
That's excellent. Now, Bruce, why don't you go ahead and answer the same question for Brigade Air?
Well, you asked that question quite a while ago. I have to think about what it was. No, I got it.
I'm sure you have plenty of amazing stories to tell.
Yeah. The kids are coming to us, of course, with first-time flight experience, and similar to what Young Eagles does through the EAA, but we take it quite a few steps further than that. It isn't just one flight. They're flying every day, hands-on. We're taking them through all the regimens of flight at the controls. They're getting a lot of ground school information during the week and a lot of exposure to an entire area of an exciting way to serve people and serve God that they've never heard of before. Most don't know this exists. So we start at this and keep planting seed steadily. Well, just this past Sunday, as the EAA program started here this year, we've been coming for 9 or 10 years now to the Oshkosh Air Venture. On Sunday, I met in front of another booth in a partnering organization with IAMA, the International Association of Missions Aviation. At Liberty University, there was a rep standing there wearing a red Liberty shirt who walked up to me and said, "I want you to know that the camp that I went to when I was 13 and 14 years old in 2002 and 2003 were the best summers of my life. And as a result of that Brigade Air Camp, I'm here enrolled in Liberty Aviation's program, and I'm here as a rep for Liberty Aviation this week." That was just a few days ago. So we're starting to see our former campers show up now at schools like Liberty, at Moody Aviation up in Spokane, Laterno University in Texas, Prairie Bible College up in Canada, School of Mission Aviation Technology in Michigan. They're starting to pop up. This is a fun season for me right now because I'm actually seeing some fruit starting to be born from those efforts in our early years.
Wow, that is amazing. And how exciting. I've done some missions work in the past, and I know it is so important to get the word out and to help people and whatnot. And we planted some gardens one time in South Africa, and I got some letters from these people and talking about how the community is thriving, and to be able to plant seeds like you were saying in people's lives, and then to see the fruit of that later on is just an amazing experience.
Well, working with youth, of course, any of us who've raised kids know it doesn't happen quickly or easily.
Right.
So it takes persistence over a long period of time. It's kind of the crock pot approach to cooking. So yeah, sticking with this has been very rewarding, especially lately, but that story was the most recent one just on Sunday. And then from there, once they complete their training, of course, then they've got years of prep in front of them still to seek out a mission board and raise financial financial support to go out, usually in an overseas location, but it's working, and we're networking now with about 30 to 40 different mission groups that are depending on kids coming from our camps as their new recruits.
I bet. Excellent. Well, you know what, that kind of transitions us here into the next question. You're up for a $10,000 grant, both of you are. Actually, both of you could win this $10,000 grant. What are you going to do with it? And how is this money going to benefit what you're doing? And then more than that, how do everyday donations benefit what you're doing as well?
Good question. The Brigade Air Camper Scholarship Fund is how all of our activities are funded. Let me explain. We have overhead, of course, like any organization would, but because we work across so many states, we have a program to support in so far 23 states. Those campers are coming to us through recruitment means that are through a lot of local churches, community clubs, home schools. And we're trying to do this camp as affordably as possible to expose as many teenagers to it that we can without the cost of the camp being prohibitive. And that's why we came up with the scholarship program. What that translates into for the camper, a camp that normally would cost about $1,500 per camper, costs them a net expense of only about $500 because there's a $1,000 write-off on every camper. There's a $1,000 benefit through the Camper Scholarship Program. That program receives funds, as we're discussing now. Also, gifts in kind. Those who lend their aircraft to us receive a tax letter from Brigade Air for the use of that airplane for the week. And so that's an expense that the camper doesn't have to absorb. So in about 99% of the cases, a camper is flying on an airplane that is only being fueled out of the camper's pocket for the week because it's being donated to Brigade Air to be used for that week. So direct answer, that $10,000 will go directly towards our Camper Scholarship Program.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's excellent. Well, Allan, let's hear from you.
Okay.
What are you guys going to do? What's Build a Plane going to do?
Well, what's really wonderful about a cash infusion like the ones that your foundation has is that it enables Build a Plane to be able to step out and do some of the more unusual programs like the one in Hooper Bay, Alaska with the Eskimo kids. Or recently we had a teacher who contacted us. He was hired by a local school to teach a class on small engine repair. And it was not a particularly wealthy school. And so his supplies were 2 broken Briggs & Stratton lawnmower engines and a crescent wrench. I kid you not. That was the components they gave him to teach small engine repair. And he explained to these kids that there was a possibility that Build a Plane was going to bring an airplane for them, and they would transition all of their project into working on a big airplane engine and all the other components that could get some attention. And this was a very tough school, and these kids were not particularly well-mannered. And when the teacher told them that they were going to be bringing an airplane in, it was like, oh man, I don't even believe you, man. We're going to have to cut you. I mean, very, very tough crowd. And they didn't believe that an airplane was going to come into their very impoverished school system.
Right.
But 2 weeks later, a big truck showed up in their parking lot, and we craned off a 152 and set it in their parking lot. And of course, the kids were astounded, and we were excited. And at the end of that school year, just to show you what kind of difference an airplane can make when an airplane shows up in a kid's school, at the end of that school year, there were 2 kids who had also gotten their A&P by enrolling in a local community college that had weekend and evening classes. So 2 of these kids got an A&P.
Wow.
3 of the kids had gotten their pilot's license, and another kid had enrolled in Embry-Riddle.
Wow.
And I'd like to tell you that it's something that we shepherded along all the way, but it wouldn't be the truth. What happens is that a cash infusion like this allows us to take on some of the projects that might have some warts. But the money enables us to do that, and once the airplane gets there, there's just some magic that occurs between kids and having an airplane to work on. And those kinds of results of getting their pilot's licenses and A&P and enrolling in probably the best known aviation education program in the country, those are the things that would continue to happen thanks to the benevolence of your foundation.
Wow, that's amazing. And we had John and Martha up here a few minutes ago, and they were talking about how aviation isn't just good for obviously the aviation community, but how it's actually good for this, for our society and just for the world as a whole and our people group. And listening to what you 2 are both saying, it's very evident that is truthful and how important it is not just to come to these events or love airplanes, but how important it is to invest into these groups and into the foundations just to keep this alive.
Yeah, it's a tool, and it can be put to a lot of different uses. We all know the value of aviation in and of itself, for transport, for cargo, for survival, for rescue. But in the lives of these kids, it becomes a real motivational tool.
Right.
Especially for those maybe who are lacking in some opportunity, like Lynn has described to us. I had to look at your name tag again, but it was pointed out. And again, with Brigade Air, the kids from all different walks, all different vantage points. Aviation is just something that ever since you're 4 and you can watch it fly overhead, we've all done. This provides that opportunity to do it inexpensively. And it sounds to me like we've had some of the same results with kids going on for training there through 2 different means, through 2 different methods.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about putting your groups together? Just kidding. Go ahead.
Well, we do quite a bit of networking. In fact, I think Lynn and I were just talking about that before the show. So yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, that's how we get by, also by networking with a lot of organizations like us.
Excellent. Well, why don't we go ahead and take this next opportunity just to tell me, I'm going to start off with you, Bruce. I want to donate time. I want more information. Where can I go?
Okay, well, obviously, the website.
Right.
www.Brigade Air, B-R-I-G-A-D-E, just like it says there.
Okay.
.org, brigadeair.org. Everything from camp schedules to information about the Camper Scholarship Program, to pilots and aircraft owners who are willing to donate their time or the use of their aircraft. the history of what we've done, how you can get involved on a multitude of different levels. All of that is on our website. Of course, we've got the old-fashioned way of calling up our home office there too for those listeners who still use a telephone. And that, yeah, what's a telephone, right? It's 520-408-2359 is the home office number.
Okay, excellent. And Lynn, why don't you go ahead and tell our viewers and listeners where they can go to find out more information about Build-A-Plane.
That's great. Actually, it's very, very difficult. Build-A-Plane has a website. It's difficult to remember. It's buildaplane.org.
Write that down.
Right. And they can log on to that site, donate an airplane, start a project, ask questions for somebody to get back to us, see videos of kids building airplanes. And
so I can find out what you guys have done, different projects. Oh, excellent. Okay.
Buildaplane.org.
Perfect. Easy enough. Well, I'd like to go ahead and thank you so much for being here. And I'd also like to remind our listeners back at home that if you want to be a part of this, which we really encourage you to be, go to the lightspeedaviationfoundation.org or lightspeedaviation.com and look for this site right here. You can go and vote for these guys. And that vote, again, it's worth $50,000. Or if you're going to buy a Zulu, which, let's face it, that's a pretty good headset, then you can donate $50 of that purchase, and it'll go to one of the organizations here. So also, you can go to their websites, you can call. I'm sure you could probably snail mail Brigade Air as well, if we're still doing that, smoke signals, whatever. But get informed and vote. Bruce, I'd like to thank you for being here, and Lynn, you too. We'd also like to thank John and Martha King for being here and remind everybody to go vote. I'm Tiffany Wolff with the Pilotcast, wishing you all blue skies.